والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عن جابر بن عبد الله الأنصاري عن فاطمة الزهراء عليه السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قال: سمعت فاطمة أنها قالت: دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال: السلام عليك يا فاطمة. فقلت: عليك السلام. قال: إني أجد في بدني ضعفا. فقلت له: أعيذك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف. فقال: يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليمان فغطيني به. فأتيته بالكساء اليمان فغطيته به، فصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال: السلام عليك يا أماه. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال: يا أماه إني يشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله. فقلت: نعم، إن جدك تحت الكساء. فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي ندخل معك تحت الكساء؟ فقال: وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معه تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال: السلام عليك يا أماه. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. وقال لي: يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت: نعم، إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء. فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا جداه، السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله، أتأذن لي نكون معكما تحت الكساء؟ فقال: وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معهما تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه. فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال: السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. وقال: يا فاطمة إني يشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله. فقلت: نعم، ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي نكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال له: عليك السلام يا أخي ويا وصي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه. ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت: السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي نكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال: وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه. فلما اكتملن جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرف الكساء وأومأ بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال: اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم، فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. وقال الله عز وجل: يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل: يا رب ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل: هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. فقال جبرائيل: يا رب يتأذن لي أن أحبط إلى الأرض ليكون معهم سادسة؟ فقال الله: نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك: وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم، فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ وقال رسول الله وعليك السلام: يا أمين وحي الله، إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء وقال لأبي: إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول: إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. وقال علي لأبي: يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي: والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي: إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي ثانيا: يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم مهموم إلا وفرج الله همه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. وقال علي: إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Please recite Surah Al-Fatiha for all marhumin.
Thank you, Ali Raza. Now I will request Brother Hassan Jafri to come and recite the Marsiya. Salawat.
एक मरतबा और दुरूद भेजिए मोहम्मद वाले। बारे दीगर सलवा। जंजीर टूट जाएगी कहते ही या अली, दरबार देख लेगा के मुख्तार कौन है, दरबार देख लेगा के मुख्तार कौन है। आबिद का वो जलाल تھا دربار شام میں، عابد کا وہ جلال تھا دربار شام میں، اور ظالم یہ پوچھتا رہا بیمار کون ہے، زنجیر ٹوٹ جائے گی. درود بھیجیے محمد و آل محمد. سلام کے چند اشعار. ایک درود بھیجو محمد والے. یہ سوچتا ہوں کہ عابد کا حال کیا اسیر ہو کہ وہ جب شام میں گیا ہوگا. یہ سوچتا ہوں کہ عابد کا حال کیا ہوگا. وہ ظلم دیکھے ہیں سجاد نے حسین کے بعد، وہ ظلم دیکھے ہیں سجاد نے حسین کے بعد. مجھے یقین ہے کہ اب تک بھی رو رہا ہوگا. مجھے یقین ہے کہ اب تک بھی رو رہا ہوگا. یہ سوچتا ہوں کہ عابد کا حال کیا ہوگا. سنا ہے شام میں جاتے ہی خون رونے لگا. سنا ہے شام میں جاتے ہی خون رونے لگا. نہ جانے شمر نے اس وقت کیا کہا ہوگا. نہ جانے شمر نے اس وقت کیا کہا ہوگا. یہ سوچتا ہوں کہ عابد کا حال کیا ہوگا. گلے کے طوق نے عابد کو کیا جھکانا تھا. گلے کے طوق نے عابد کو کیا جھکانا تھا. وہ اپنے کھوئے ہوئے لال ڈھونڈتا ہوگا. وہ اپنے کھوئے ہوئے لال ڈھونڈتا ہوگا. یہ سوچ سوچتا ہوں کہ عابد کا حال کیا ہوگا، جو غور کیجئے عابد بشر نہیں لگتا، جو غور کیجئے عابد بشر نہیں لگتا، میرے خیال میں دکھ درد کا خدا ہوگا، میرے خیال میں دکھ درد کا خدا ہوگا، یہ سوچتا ہوں۔ درود بھیجو محمد و آل محمد۔ فاتحہ۔ اسیر بلا میں جو سید سجا یتیم و بے کس و بے آشنا پہ تھی بیدا، نظر نہ آتا تھا ایک شخص بھی پہ امداد، نگاہ یاس سے تکتے تھے چار سو ہر بار، نگاہ یاس سے تکتے تھے چار سو ہر بار، جفاگروں نے جفا بے شمار کی، ہائے ہائے نہ قدر سید علی وقار کی، ہے نہ قدر سید علی وقار کی، تڑپ رہے ہیں جو بستر پہ عابد بیمار، نہ کوئی حامی تھا باقی نہ یاور و انصار، زہر کا وار جگر کے بھی ہو گیا تھا، پکارتے تھے پدر ہو کہاں میں تم پہ نثار، پکارتے تھے پدر ہو کہاں تم پہ نثار، صدائے حضرت شبیر کان میں آئی، میں ہوں سرہان کھڑا اے پدر کے شہداء، میں ہوں سرہان کھڑا اے پدر کے شہداء، اٹھا کے سختیاں ہائے ہائے گزرتے ہو بیٹا، نشان گلے میں ابھی تک ہے توق و بیڑی کا، مجھے ہے یاد وہ کانٹوں پہ راستہ چلنا، تمام کنبہ کھلے سر تھا بلوے میں میرا، تمام کنبہ کھلے سر تھا بلوے میرے، غریب میں صدقے تیری غریبی، ارے غضب ہے کلیجے کے ہو گئے ٹکڑے، ارے غضب ہے کلیجے کے ہو گئے عزیز و سینہ و سر پیٹو اٹھ گئے سج یتیم ہو گئے باقر ہوئی نئی بیدا پچھاڑیں کھاتے ہیں لاشیں پہ بادل ناشا یہ رو کے کہتے ہیں پیغام کہ میں ہوا یہ رو کے کہتے ہیں پیغام کہ میں ہوا تمام عمر نہ چین آپ کو ملا کچھ بھی یہ صبر تھا نہ کسی کا گلا کیا کچھ بھی یہ صبر تھا نہ کسی کا گلا کیا کچھ بھی جہاں سے اٹھ گیا والی غریبوں کا لوگ اٹھائی سختیاں کیا شام میں ذرا سوچو اسیر ہونا شہ پاک کا بھی یاد کرو حرم تھے سامنے بے پردہ کچھ خیال کرو حرم تھے سامنے بے پردہ کچھ خیال کرو زمین پہ کھا کے جو غش آہ گرتے تھے لاچا لگاتے جاتے تھے درے وہ پشت پر ہر لگاتے جاتے تھے درے وہ پشت پر ہر بار پدر کو غسل و کفن دیتا ہے یتیم پسر تو خون روتا ہے بیٹا پدر کے لاشے پر جو نیل دروں کے آتے ہیں پشت شے پہ نظر لبوں پہ آتی ہے بے ساختہ فغان جگر لبوں پہ آتی ہے بے ساختہ فغان جگر یہ کیسا زہر عدو نے دیا خدا کی پناہ یتیم ہم کو لینے کیا خدا کی پناہ یتیم ہم کو لینے کیا خدا کی پناہ اسیر کے بلا میں
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. If I could just request a few of the brothers who are sitting in the middle to kindly move forward a few steps. We'd appreciate that. Thank you very much. Tonight's program is the final in our series of 3 majalises that were commemorating the Shahadat of Imam Zayn ul-Abideen alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. The sponsors for tonight's majalis are Dr. Iqbal and Dr. Abda Jafri, the family of Marhum Jafar Abbas Mirza, as well as Nafis Abdi Khan. Let us recite Surah Fatiha for the marhumin of the sponsors, as well as for all of our marhumin, as well as for those marhumin who have no one to recite Fatiha for them. There's also a special request for Fatiha for Marhuma Khairbano Jafri, the mother of Dr. Iqbal Jafri. Surah Fatiha. There are those in our community who are in need of our prayers. They're not feeling well. Many across the world who are facing various hardships, including hunger, war, religious persecution, as well as natural disasters such as the ongoing flooding situation that's going on in Pakistan. Let us pray to Allah during these holy nights of Ayam-e-Azad to relieve the suffering of these people. There's also a special request for Dua-e-Sehet for our respected senior Noha Khan Syed Zia Rizvi, who is recovering from surgery tonight. Kindly recite with me verse number 62 of Surah Namal 5 times. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yujibal mustarra iza da'awo yakshifu su. 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 Amma yujibul mustarra iza da'awo yakshifu su. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. We've announced the last few nights that the masjid is making an appeal for donations to help the victims of the flooding in the Sindh, Balochistan, and Punjab regions of Pakistan. An email went out yesterday with details on how to make the contributions. For further information, you can speak to Dr. Iqbal Jafri, who's here. He's working very closely with Moulana Shahanshah Naqvi in Pakistan. He's getting daily updates from him regarding the progress there, and the Moulana will make sure that the funds, get to those who are in desperate need of our help, both in terms of prayers and financial support. Just as in all nights, I'll remind everyone once again that we're still seeing, cases of COVID in our community, as well as throughout New Jersey. So again, we kindly remind those who are in attendance in person to keep their masks on for the duration of the program. And for those who are not feeling well in any way with fever or cold symptoms, we respectfully ask that you please refrain from coming in person to the masjid, and you can follow all of the programs on our YouTube channel online. Keeping the safety of our children in mind, again, we are respectfully asking the parents to please keep children with you during all times throughout the duration of the program, and please be aware of their whereabouts at all times. Keeping everyone's health in mind, we have been making announcements, humbly asking anyone coming to the masjid to refrain from smoking on the masjid premises. We're trying to maintain a smoke-free facility going forward. And again, we thank you for your kind consideration of these requests, as well as for your anticipated cooperation. A few notes on upcoming programs. On Friday, August 26th at 6 p.m., there is a seminar being held at the Muslim Center of Greater Princeton. This is located in West Windsor, New Jersey. The title of the seminar is Lessons Learned from Albuquerque, the Shia Experience in America. This seminar is being organized to raise awareness and understanding of the Shia school of thought, especially after the tragic killing of several Muslim men in New Mexico recently. I'm sure you all have heard about that. They were killed because of their Shia background. So please try to attend and support this program. If anyone needs more information, I can give you details about this program at the end of the majlis. On Saturday, August 27th, there's two programs right here at the masjid. There's the annual Imam Hussain Day Conference. This will start right after Namaz-e-Zohrain. We have four wonderful speakers to speak that day, including our own Moulana Rizwan Rizvi. So we hope that you'll join us for that program. On the same day, there's the annual Masjid-e-Ali blood drive. That'll take place from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. At the masjid. There is an email that went out regarding registration for that blood drive, so we hope that you'll be able to join us and donate blood in the name of Imam Hussain alayhi salam and his family and companions. There's also another online course that I wanted to bring to your attention. There's an 8-week online course being run by Maulana Sheikh Bilal Hussain, who is no stranger to us. We all know him. The title of this class is History of Karbala. In this class, the historical events that led to the tragedy of Karbala will be discussed in detail. The class will start online. It's going to start tomorrow, Wednesday, August 24th at 7 p.m. Again, anybody who needs more information on how to register can speak with me at the end of the majlis. So without any further delay, it is my honor to request our resident alim, Moulana Rizwan Rizvi, to address the majlis tonight. Please greet him with loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin.
اللهم صل على محمد. رحم الله من قرأ سورة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Please recite another Surah Fatiha for the marhumin of tonight's sponsors, especially Khair Bano Jafri Binte Sher Ali Khan. It's her third Barsi. So please, mother of Dr. Iqbal Jafri, please recite a Surah Fatiha for her as well as other marhumin. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وإذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب أجيب دعوة الداعي إذا دعاني فليستجيبوا لي وليؤمنوا بي لعلهم يرشدون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات بإجماع. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Condolences to all of you, our ulama, as well as Imam of our time, Imam Mahdi, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. On this sad occasion, the day of the martyrdom of his Jad, our fourth Imam, Imam Ali ibn Hussein, Zayn ul-Abideen, alayhi salatu wa salam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala count us amongst the people who receive the shafa'at of our fourth Imam, inshallah, on the day of resurrection. The verse that I recited is from Surah Baqarah, ayat number 186. A very known and commonly recited ayat, in my opinion. And with the recitation of it, I'm sure you understood. The discussion will be in that valley, if you want to call it, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses mankind, addresses Rasulullah to say to mankind, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي, O Prophet, when my servants ask you concerning me, فَإِنِّي قَرِيب, then tell them that I am near. أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِي إِذَا دَعَانِ, and I respond to their dua, their supplications, when they call upon me. فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي, then let them respond to me. وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي, let them believe in me. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ, so they may find the path of righteousness and guidance. Of course, our fourth Imam is one of the individuals who was present in the tragedy of Karbala. And with the ijaz, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kept him alive as the hujjat, and the earth cannot be void of the hujjat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But with that said, we realize how difficult it must have been for our fourth Imam post Karbala. The 35 years of his life after the events of Karbala. When you look at that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent this messenger with this deen and sent these ayat which confirm that the deen has reached its limit, that it has reached its kamal in the 11th year after Hijrah, before the wafat of Rasulullah. The way Rasul left this deen was at its peak. Al-Yawm akmaltu lakum had already been revealed. Deen had already been brought to the peak, and it was already at the highest level possible, according to this ayat of Quran which you hear all the time. Al-Yawm akmaltu lakum deenakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati wa raditu lakum al-Islam deena. And to top that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says that now I am satisfied with this deen for you. Meaning, up until this point, I may not have been satisfied completely because there were certain components that were missing. Now, with the completion of this deen, of course, this ayat was revealed. When the completion of the deen was done, when the kuffar had become mayus, al-yawm ya'is al-lazina kafaru min dinikum, the day when the wilayat of Ali ibn Abi Talib was announced. Now, with that announcement, deen became mukammal. The ni'mat reached its perfection, and Allah was satisfied with this deen as the deen for mu'mineen and muslimin. The deen which Rasulullah has brought to its peak. You see that within 50 years of time, the person who is in charge of this deen has no idea and does not understand the values of Islam. Someone who's composing poetry such as saying, La'ibat Banu Hashim bil mulk fala ja'a khabarun wala wahyun nazal. That Banu Hashim were merely playing with this kingdom. There was no wahi that ever came down. There was no news that ever came down. With these type of aqaid, this man is now sitting on the masnad of Rasulullah. So you look at the tanazzul and the downfall of this religion, that within 50 years, where Rasulullah had reached and brought it to the peak, that it was at the level of perfection, now where does this deen stand? And this is where someone needs to stand up to rectify and bring the ta'alimat back to the way they were. And that is the reason and the purpose behind the rise of Sayyid al-Shuhada. But what fourth Imam had to go through post Karbala is something which is devastating. We look at the life of our fourth Imam. Right after Karbala, Imam is living in the same city of Medina, but Imam does not have companions. Imam does not even have men, the family members of Ahlul Bayt whom he can rely upon, whom he can trust, right? You trust your family members, but where are these family members? Majority of them were martyred in the plains of Karbala. Imam ﷺ, post Karbala, witnesses Waqi Harra, which takes place in the city of Medina, where the city was desecrated to the extent that the masjid of Rasulullah became a stable for animals. For 3 days, there were animals that were part in this masjid. Namaz was far away. Forget about namaz that is happening in this masjid. All types of atrocities were being committed in the city. They were prominent ashab of Rasul from the time of Battle of Badr, from the time of Battle of Uhud. These prominent ashab are present, and how they were treated and how the women were treated, the result of which was following year. So we see that army is erected to go ahead and desecrate the city of Medina. Why? Because there was a movement that was brewing in the city of Medina. To suppress that movement, Yazid hires another individual by the name Muslim ibn Uqba, although the history calls him to be Musrif ibn Uqba, that there is no way that he could have been called Muslim, who attacks the city of Medina and then tells his future plans. Now I'm going to go ahead and attack the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When someone said that you don't have any fear that you're attacking the house of Allah, he said the hukm of Amirul Mu'mineen is above the integrity of Kaaba. Who's the Amirul Mu'mineen? Now you understand. This is why we have a very rigorous process to consider someone who is to be Amirul Mu'mineen for us. We do not make anyone to be just Amirul Mu'mineen for us. Because if that person whom you're considering to be Amirul Mu'mineen is one responsible for bringing down the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. And then right after that, you see the events of the Tawwabin, you see the rise of Mukhtar. Fourth Imam witnesses all of these events. And for about 15 years, Imam is living a life where it is impossible for him to do anything because he does not have the pulpit, he does not have the mimbar. He's living in a situation where there aren't any companions, there aren't any family members he can trust and propagate the madhab. What does Imam do? Does he sit idly, hand on hand? That's it, I'm just going to wait it all out. I'm not going to do anything, things will get better, and eventually it will turn in my favor, and then I'll start doing the tabligh work. No, Imam did not stop. If Imam had stopped, this would have pushed the agenda further back. You see that the work that Imam started, that within 20 years, Imam was right back at the maqam where his father was before the events of Karbala. This was the perseverance of our fourth Imam. And we need to learn something from the perseverance of our fourth Imam. You heard this before as well, that if you are ever down in your life, you ever feel that all the doors are shut for you, you've lost your job, you've lost your family, everything is gone, and there's really nothing left in your life anymore, and you're getting suicidal thoughts and whatnot, and you think that everyone is against you, and you think that all the opportunities are for others and none for you, at that moment you feel distress, you feel stress, and you feel despair. Mayusi comes upon you. And you think about doing things which are not allowed for you to do. Whenever you get in such a situation, and I know many of our community members are facing such situations. Either it is in the hands of the spouse, that the spouse is treating the other one in a way where sometimes it's the wife who's suffering, who calls and he says that, Moulana, my life is hell, my life has nothing left in it, I'm living in this sort of dungeon, I'm spending life where there's nothing that I can do on my own, I can even hardly breathe, and how do I survive? Why everything is going against me? Why everything is against me? Why everyone is against me? And how come nobody is holding anyone responsible and holding anyone accountable for what is being done to me? These are the sentiments that I get sometimes from the community members. And vice versa. Sometimes it's the husbands who are saying some similar stuff, that we are going through difficulty. Financially, for example, mentally, emotionally, many things that are happening where we can't function properly. You want us to come to majlis, we have to worry about putting food on the table. You want us to come to the daily prayers, we have to do this, we have to do that. We don't have time for any of these things. When you are feeling this sort of mayusi and despair and loss of hope, at that moment think about Imam Zayn ul-Abideen. Think about fourth Imam. Why? Just now imagine his situation. Karbala has happened. 10th of Muharram has taken place. Let's fast forward, because you already know the Masaib of Kufa and Sham. Let's fast forward then, bring Imam to Medina. Let's say he comes back the same year, according to some narrations, or he comes back after a year, according to some narrations. There's nothing to do with those two differences, not at least now. that whether Imam came back the same year or whether Imam came back after a year in imprisonment. Nonetheless, Imam is back in Medina. What is he short of? He's short of men in his family whom he can trust. What is he short of? Reliable, trustworthy companions. What is he missing? He doesn't have the pulpit. What can he do? What can he not do? He cannot give lectures. He cannot propagate. Umayyads are now watching every move that Imam makes. Imam ﷺ is living in a situation, and there's a trauma in the family as well. He is the masoom, not everyone else is the masoom. Yes, he's masoom, he can deal with these situations extraordinarily, but not his family members. You don't expect them to be showing ismat and taharat, that they have seen such trauma. One person dies in front of us with such trauma that goes through a person's mind. Imagine seeing 18 of your family members being slaughtered and butchered. According to the riwayat of 8th Imam, Yabna Shabib in kunta baqiyan lishayf fabki lil Husayn fa innahu dhubiha kama yadbahul kabsh. If you want to weep, Ibn Shabib, for someone, weep for Hussein. Why? Hussein was killed and massacred and butchered like the sheep are butchered. Right? Imam has witnessed that with his own eyes. And the ladies of the family who have survived this Waqi'a Karbala, they have too also witnessed it with their own eyes. They're going through a trauma. It's not easy to cope with this situation. हमारे घर में एक मौत हो जाती है तो हम अपने आसाब खो बैठते हैं जिस घर में 18 जनाजे उठ जाएं. Right? One person dies in our family, we can't even think properly. People are recommended to bring food for you because you can't function right now. The last thing on your mind is to cook. That's why it's recommended for community members to take care of the basic necessities for at least 3 days, if not more. And alhamdulillah, our community does that. We can't function properly if there's one death in our family, let alone seeing 18, that too in a situation, in a manner which they were killed and massacred. That's what our fourth Imam is going through. So if you ever feel low in your life, that you think everything is going against you and you cannot do anything, and the world has turned against you, and now you feel distress, think about how Imam Zayn ul-Abideen dealt with the situation. If no one could be your inspiration, fourth Imam will be your inspiration. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Take fourth Imam, not just for his character that he presented in Karbala and before Karbala, but take his, the way that he dealt with the situation. For 20 years, Imam worked hard to bring himself back in the eyes of the people, of course. He was already Imam. There was no question about that. But to bring his appearance back in the public the way it used to be for his father. Within 20 years. So 20 years is a long time. Yes, Imam couldn't wait. Every year, qatra qatra mi shavad darya, every day he was working hard toward it. And for that matter, aside from Imam Rada, there was no other janaza of any of the masoom that came out with such magnitude that came out of our fourth Imam. When in the 95th year after Hijrah, Imam's Shahadat takes place, the janaza and tashi of janaza, the amount of people that attended, there was no match. No one else's janaza was as big, purshuku, as the janaza of fourth Imam. It's the same Imam whose life you look from 61 to 75 or 80, for example. First 20 years. So difficult. But did Imam give up? Did Imam just sit idly saying, okay, I'm going to rest now and let the things and the events turn on its head? No. Imam continued working. Of course, he didn't have the means. What did he do? He chose a unique method through which he could propagate the religion and still train companions and students so that they would pave the path for our fifth Imam and the revolution that our sixth Imam will about to bring. And that's the work of our fourth Imam. In the form of this book that you and I have between us, known as Sahifa Sajjadiyya or Sahifa Kamila, Zabur Al Muhammad, Injil Ahl Bayt. These are the names of this book that Imam has left behind. You have these 54 du'as in this book that are masterpiece. Each and every single one of these du'as are a masterpiece. Imam is not making du'as like, oh Allah give me this, oh Allah give me that. Rather, in each and every single one of these du'as, Imam is protesting against the Umayyads. Imam is also teaching us how to conduct our life in the religious manner. Imam is teaching us ahkam-e-deen in these du'as as well. And of course, akhlaq is also there in these du'as. Right? Some of the du'as are also named Dua Makarim al-Akhlaq. It's the entire dua is about akhlaq. Dua Tawbah. The entire dua is about how to repent and how to perform tawbah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In fact, I heard one of the scholars say that Sahifa Sajjadiyya is a book for Jawan, youth. It's not a book for elderly. It's a book for those who are young at heart or young by age. जवानों के लिए ये किताब है, बूढ़ों के लिए नहीं है इतनी. We have made this into be a book for those who are elderly. No. This is a book for those who are jawan, because they can benefit the most out of it. Such as the dua tawbah. Anyone can do tawbah when they are old. Doing tawbah when you are young is a big deal. Tawbah kardan dar jawani shivae pagambarist, waqt piri gurge zalim mishawat parhezgar. When you do tawbah at the time of Jawani, this is the method of Anbiya. Waqt piri, gurge zalim, at the time of old age, even a wolf, which is zalim, will become parhezgar and muttaqi. Right? A tyrant wolf will also become parhezgar and muttaqi at the time of old age. So when is it important for you to do tawbah? It is important for you to do tawbah when you are young. When there isn't anything upon you, for example. That's why we find the adiyya of Ma'sumin when they are saying, Allahumma aghfir li ad-dunub allati. Oh Allah, forgive my sunub, my sins. Imam, what sins? You have not committed any sins. You're Ma'sum. Imam alayhi salatu wasalam will respond, yes, as far as the ismat is concerned, I have not committed any sins. But my actions in front of the magnitude of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are nothing. And there's shortfall in it. That's why dua of fourth Imam, associated with fourth Imam, is that after salat, he would make this dua. In kana fiha naqsun aw khalalun. Oh Allah, if in my salat that I have just performed, if there's any naqs, any defect, any shortcoming, fataqabbal. Oh Allah, please forgive and accept this. La tu'akhidni, as far as this namaz is concerned. Right, you are masoom, but Imam is teaching us how to make this dua. This tawbah is important, but Imam is showing us this book, Sahifa Sajjadiyya, the importance of it, how we have taken this book so lightly. I'll narrate a story of Allama Muhammad Taqi Majlisi. He is the father of Baqir Majlisi. Baqir Majlisi is the one who wrote Bahar al-Anwar. This 11th century scholar, Muhammad Taqi Majlisi, was also a very big alim. His son became more famous, but father was equally important. Father has done the sharh of one of the 4 manuscripts that we have. Man la yazurul faqih by Shaykh Saduq, Rawzatul Muttaqin is the sharh and the commentary by Muhammad Taqi Majlisi. Muhammad Taqi Majlisi, from a very young age, this is before the birth of Baqir Majlisi. He says that I was sitting in the masjid of Isfahan, and between Khwab and Ghaflat, I saw Imam Zamana. He said, as soon as I saw him, I asked him a few questions. You know, you can have mushahida and you can have mukashafa with Imam Zamana. Of course, for that you need to have certain things done outright. Cleansing of the heart and purification of the soul. Without it, you want to go and see Imam Zamana. So he said, he was already muttaqi and parhezgar. He said, I saw Imam Zamana in this, khwab o ghaflat, or khwab o bidari rather, that I was sleeping and I was up and I saw Imam Zamana. I asked him a few questions, he answered all my questions. And then I said to Imam, Imam, it's not very easy to access you. So whenever I'm run into a problem and there's a question that I have, how do I approach you? Please guide me to something which will answer my questions. Now you're asking Imam Zamana this. Imam Zamana, he said, he grabbed my hand, he took me to this bazar in Isfahan. There's a place called Darul Battikh. He took me there, and he guided me to a man whose name was Hassan Taj. He said, Hassan Taj, give him the book that we have given you. Hassan Taj gave him the book. He said, take this book and you'll provide all the answers you need. He said, I realized that book was a book of dua, but I did not see the name of it, and then I woke up. I felt only if I had slept for a little bit longer, I'm sure it all happened to all of us as well. Sometimes we are sleeping and we're seeing some dreams, and then when we wake up, we say, I hope the dream was a little bit longer, so that, I would have completed the task. He woke up just before seeing the name of the book. Now he's regretting it. What to do? Who to ask? He remembers the name Taj. He said the only person who could be named Taj is Sheikh Bahai, because Sheikh Bahai was alive at that time. He was the scholar of the time. So he goes to Sheikh Bahai asking. Sheikh Bahai gave him certain things, but it wasn't what he was looking for. And then he said, let me backtrack the path that Imam Zamana took me. So he walked down the street, got to Darul Battikh, found a man whose name was Hassan Taj, asked him if he had any books. He said, yeah, there are books that some tullab have left over here. See whatever is useful for you and you can take it. He said, as soon as I went, the first book that I grabbed, it was Sahifa Sajjadiyya. He said, I wept, I cried. I said, all these years I had this book in front of me and I had value for that book, but I did not take care of that book the way I should have. Right? I took it for granted, for example. I did not value the book until Imam Zamana has to tell me that this is the book that you should be keeping close to, why it will answer all the questions that you have. He said, from that moment on, I started the propagation of this book of Imam Zayn ul-Abideen. I spread it to across the city of Isfahan. So the moment that not a single house was without the book, Sahifa Sajjadiyya at that time. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So this is the book. This is a book which tells us the fiqhi ahkam, which tells us akhlaqiyat, which teaches us how to protest in front of the tyrants and the oppressors. And then Imam left behind another important thing, Risalatul Huquq. The 50 rights, and it's not a lengthy book by any means. It's a small book. I don't know how many people can say, I'm sure many of you can, that you have read, forget about Sahifa Sajjadiyya, which is a little bit longer, that Risalatul Huquq cover to cover. Very few would be able to claim that. That I have read all 50 rights that Imam has mentioned. And then read the shara that has been done by many of the scholars regarding these 50 rights. One of the rights that Imam mentioned is the right of your children. Right of your children. And what does Imam say in the rights of your children? He says the first right for your children is that you give them a good name. Name which is valuable. Why? Because there's effects of good name on the child. And yuhassin ismahu. Give a child a good name. And then when I was asked what kind of name we should give, he says, Sammu awladakum asma al-anbiya. Name your kids after the names of anbiya and the family members. But we see how much are we following this command of our fourth Imam. When you see the names that come out these days, just so that we can be unique, just so that our name, the children's name, is different than the names that are normally out there. Why are you running away from the names such as Fatima, such as the name of Zaynab, such as the name of Sakina, such as the name of Ruqayya? Why are you running away from the names such as Ali and Hassan and Hussein and Abbas? Because there's so many of us. That was the question that was raised to fourth Imam. What's your name? He said, Ali. He said, what was your brother's name? He said, Ali. The one who was martyred? He said, Ali. He said, all of you are Ali? He said, yes, we're all Ali. He said, your father didn't find any other name? He said, my father, if he had 100 children, he would have named all of them to be Ali. Ma salli ala. Ya Ali. He would have named all of them to be Ali. That's why all the kids of Imam Hussain were named Ali. Ali Asghar, Ali Awsat, Ali Akbar, Fatima Kubra, Fatima Sughra. All of the children are named, daughters are named Fatima and sons are named Ali, because that was the need of the time. The way people were understanding of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Ali, the people were looking at him, and the way they thought of the character of Ali, there was an example that had to be set. Because of what was happening in Sham, the character of Imam Ali was being tarnished. There had to be shown what is Ali and who is Ali, and how you understand Ali. This is what you look at Ali in al-Akbar, and then you see Ali ibn Abi Talib in him. You see Ali in al-Awsat, you find Ali ibn Abi Talib in him. You see the Jawhar of Ali Akbar, you find Ali in him. And that's how Imam Hussain was removing the doubts from the minds of the people. So don't be afraid of naming your children if it's already been named. Why run away from it when your Masoom is telling you and they're also following the same lead? Let me bring you back to the ayat which I had recited in the beginning, so that you don't say Moulana recited the ayat but did not even talk about the ayat. Ayat says, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ ibadi. Oh my Prophet, if my servant asks you regarding me, فَإِنِّي قَرِيب. Tell him I'm close. أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ. I respond to their call. فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي. Let them respond to me. وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي. Let them believe in me. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ. So that they may be rightly guided. The interesting note on this ayat is that 7 times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses zamir mutakallim, where He associated things to Himself. Sa'alaka ibadi, my servant. Inni, I am. Ujibo, anni, da'ani, li, bi. 7 times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is using this ya mutakallim, where He's associating Himself to that which is being mentioned. First and foremost in it is ibad, the servants. So know your worth, know your value, that Allah calls you to be His servants. Right? Ibn Sakid said you don't need to decorate the Kaaba. There's no need to do the tazjeen of Kaaba. Why? There's enough for the tazjeen and the decoration of the Kaaba that Allah has associated the house with Himself. When He ordered Hazrat Ibrahim and Hazrat Ismail, Antahira bayti. O Ibrahim, O Ismail, beautify or clean my house, my house. When Allah associated Himself with this house, this is the epitome of the beautification and decoration of this house. There's no need for you to go ahead and physically decorate this house. Allah has associated it with Himself. Therefore we see that when He says, وَأَن طَهِّرَ بَيْتِي لِلطَّائِفِينَ وَالْعَاكِفِينَ وَرُكَّعِ السُّجُودِ. For who should you clean this house? You should clean this house for those who are going to perform tawaf, those who are going to go ahead and do ruku, those who are going to do sujood in this house of mine. So when you come to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if you see that it is dirty, if something is laying which should not be laying, it should be thrown into the garbage, don't think that is not my duty. When you do that amal without anyone telling you about it, that Baba, you saw garbage laying over here, why didn't you just throw it away? You don't feel ashamed that why should I do this? Why? Because those who were responsible for cleaning the house of Allah are Ibrahim and Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam. Why are you shying away being in the saf of Hazrat Ibrahim and Hazrat Ismail? They were the ones who are restoring and cleaning the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so you can do the same thing. So Allah has a house He associates Himself, Baytullah. There's a month that Allah associates with Himself, Shahrullah. But the word Bayt in Arabic, Moulana is sitting over here, is from Baytuta. So you have 2 words in Arabic. You have Qaylula, which is done, a short nap in the afternoon. Then you have Baytuta, which is a longer nap, which is at night time, when you sleep at night. So when you sleep during the afternoon, which many of us are deprived of, we don't even know if there is a sleep in the afternoon. Qaylula, something like this is called. Back in the day there was, because people would start working 4 a.m. And then by the time it would be Zohar, they would pretty much finish their work and they would be able to sleep during the afternoon. That was called qaylula. Nonetheless, the short nap during the day is qaylula, the long nap at night is called baytuta. But the nightly nap is called baytuta, right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not sleep. La ta'khudhuhu sinatum wala nawm. Allah, forget about him sleeping, he doesn't doze off. Why are you calling this to be Baytullah? Someone has to sleep in this house in order for it to become Baytullah. Thus the wiladat of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Muttaqeen, Ali ibn Abi Talib ﷺ, in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his Baytuta in the house makes Kaaba to be the Qibla of Muslimin. Example of which is, you say, where are you coming from, Moulana? Well, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the stature of Hazrat Adam, وَإِذَا سَوَّيْتُهُ نَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي. Not before blowing the soul into Hazrat Adam, Allah did not ask the angels to go ahead and do sajda. Only when he blew the soul into Adam, then he said, go ahead and do sajda. Hazrat Adam was qabil sajda, sajda ta'zimi, not ta'abbudi. He was qabil sajda after Allah blew his soul into Adam alayhi wasalam. Guess what? Kaaba was the house of Allah from the very beginning, but it was not Baytullah and Qiblatullah until the wiladat of Ali, the soul of Allah, being born in the house of Allah, and now it is considered to be Baytullah. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. But the dua is something which our fourth Imam taught us. Dua is something which is considered to be the salah of mu'min. Ad-dua salahul mu'min. It's the weapon of a mu'min. That's why you read in Dua Kumail, Ya Sari ar-Rida, Ighfir liman la yamliku illa dua. You know how beautiful are these words. We read them, we take it for granted. Ya Sari ar-Rida. Oh, the one whose pleasure is sought so, quickly. जिसको जल्दी से राजी किया जा सके, उर्दू में ऐसा है, जिसको जल्दी से राजी किया जा सके, या सरी अर्दा, right? How many times has it happened with you that there's a friend who, for example, something happened between you and hasn't spoken to you? How long does it take for you to go up to this friend, make him ask for forgiveness? कितना टाइम लगता है उसको मनाने में कि भाई गलती हो गई, माफ कर दो, छोड़ दो, क्या करना पड़ेगा? What should I do so that you can be my friend again? Sometime between the spouses, it takes sometimes for some people longer, for some less. Certain things that you have to do, maybe buy gifts and whatnot to go ahead and please the other party, so they are back in good books again. Sometimes between the brothers and the sisters and even parents and the children, that something has happened, now they're not speaking to one another. Ab unko manana hai. Is it easy to go up to someone and seek this forgiveness and make them come back to be on your good books? Sometimes it's difficult. Some people are easy, some people are not. Tendency is very difficult. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is someone, Ya Sari ar-Rida. No matter how far you have gone from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, जितना आपने अल्लाह का दिल अल्लाह को नाराज किया हो, no matter how much you have displeased him, all you got to do is to ask for tawbah and you have sought the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what Amir al-Mu'mineen is saying in Dua Kumail. Ya Sari ar-Rida. The one whose pleasure is so quick. Ighfir liman la yamliku illa dua. Forgive the one who possesses nothing except dua. Here we thought we possess our wealth. Here we thought we possess our children. Here we thought we possess our families and our houses. Everything is in our possession. Guess what? No. You don't possess any of these things. In fact, you don't even possess your own body parts. You don't even possess your own organs. They're not your property. That's why we have some rules regarding organ donations that people question all the time. You don't have authority over them. There's one thing that you have the authority over. Imam says, "Ighfir liman la yamliku illa dua." Forgive the one who possesses nothing There's nothing in his tamleek except what? Except this dua. And that's why when Shaitan said, ثُمَّ لَأُغْوِيَنَّهُمْ, that I will most surely misguide them. I will come from Yameen and Shamal. I will come from Bayna Yaday, from front and Wara. And I will indeed misguide them. And you will find very few to be shukr guzar and grateful. Allah said, yes, Shaitan will attack you from right, from left, from front, from back. But there's no access for Shaitan from two directions. One above and one down. When you raise your hand making dua, Shaitan does not penetrate and access that. When you go in sajda and you make dua, Shaitan cannot access that either. So utilize this in this phenomena that is in front of you. Make this dua, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? You and I get tired when someone asks us so much. Allah is annoyed when people don't ask Him. Udu'uni astajib lakum. Inna alladhina yastakbiruna an ibadati sayadkhuluna jahannama dakhirin. Ask me and I will respond to you. Inna alladhina yastakbiruna, those who are too arrogant to ask me, they are the ones sayadkhuluna jahannama dakhirin. They will enter the Jahannam, but not ordinarily. Dakhirin. Zillat ki tarah se unko leke jaya jayega. With humiliation they will be entered into Jahannam. Those who refrain from knocking on my door. So Allah is requesting, asking you to go ahead and make dua. Imam Zayn ul-Abideen have taught us throughout his life how to make dua. Yet we are away from making this dua. You know, there are maqamat that people have attained, and I'll bring you towards the close. There are maqamat that people have attained. Primarily, remembering the Masoom. One of the tragedies of Karbala was what? Water. You hear this phenomena that Imam wept for 34 years. Sometimes people say Imam did nothing but weep. 34 years Imam wept. No doubt, Imam wept for 34 years. But it wasn't that Imam was continuously weeping. Every time water was brought, Imam would weep. Jab bhi pani laya jata, Imam rote. Whenever food was brought for him, he would weep. He would look at that water and he would say, this is the water which did not reach the halaq of Ali Asghar. This is the water for which Imam Hussain says, Shi'ati imma sharabtum ma azbin fadhkuruni. Aw sametum be gharibin. Aw shahidin fandibuni. Oh my Shia, whenever you get this cold water to drink, fadhkuruni, remember me. And whenever you hear about a shaheed or a gharib, then do nuduba on me. Fandibuni. Lament over me. Imam Hussein's request to Shia. He uses the word Shia in it. Shiati in ma sharabtum ma azmin. That when you drink water, remember my thirst. There was a person by the name Mirza Taqi Khan. In Iran, he's known as Amir Kabir. If you go to Iran, you see Amir Kabir written all over, refers to Mirza Taqi Khan. He was hanged in Baghifin in Kashan. Ayatollah Araki says, I saw Mirza Taqi Khan and I asked him in Halat Ru'ya that you have such a high maqam in Barzakh. Is this because you got rid of the deviated sects in your time? Because he fought against Firaqai Munharif of his time. Mirza Taqi Khan said, no. He said, is it because your death was so oppressive and mazlumana? He said, no. He said, why is it that you have such high maqam in Barzakh? Forget about it, Jannat hasn't happened. Mirza Taqi Khan responded, this is the ata of my Mawla Hussain. He said, how? Would you mind explaining? He said, yes. When they had cut my veins in Baghifin in Kashan, and my blood was dripping, and I was gradually and slowly dying, at that point, thirst came upon me. I became extremely thirsty. And I almost asked one of the guards to bring me some water, and they would have brought it. A dying man's wish. Any civilized person will bring water. It was only Karbala that when dying people asked for water, they would not give. वो करबला थी जहाँ मरने वालों को पानी नहीं दिया गया. Anywhere you go in the civilized world, whenever someone asks for water, even it is recommended to give animal which is about to be sacrificed, give water. He said, I almost opened my lips to ask for some water because I was extremely thirsty. And then I said to myself, Mirza Taqi Khan, there are 2 wounds on your hands, and your blood is dripping, and you feel thirsty, and you're going to ask for water? Have you no shame that Hussein was struck with so many wounds from top to bottom on his body, and he left this world atshanan? He said, I did sabr on my thirst. I did not ask for water. And I said, as my life was slowly and gradually was ending and I fell on the ground, as my cheek hit the ground, I saw my Mawla Hussein. He came and he said to me, because this is true, when a mu'min leaves this world, a mu'min is gradually leaving this world in halat ihtizar, or after the death, he is well received by Panjatan. He said, Mawla Hussein came and he said, Amir Kabir Mirza Taqi Khan, you showed respect to our thirst. This is your maqam in Barzakh. Mirza Taqi Khan, you did not drink water because you felt ashamed of our thirst. This is your maqam in Barzakh. Wait for the maqam that we will give you in the paradise. Ajrukum Allah. This is when you remember the thirst of Imam Hussein. Imam Zayn ul-Abideen would remember the thirst every time food was brought in front of him. Every time water was brought in front of Imam, Imam would weep and Imam would cry, to the extent that the Minhal said to Imam, Mawla, how much are you going to weep? How much are you going to cry? You are masoom. We can't do tawsiyah to you. Imam, when he was asked where did he face the most difficulty, he said, Asham, Asham, Asham. But whenever this person said to Imam that, Imam, how can we calm you down? Why do you still weep and cry? So many years have passed to the events of Karbala. Imam said, you have not done justice to us. Yaqub lost one of his sons. He had the other 11 sons with him. For a few years, one of his sons were away from his eyes. He wept so much, the ayat of Quran says, وَبِيَزَّتْ عَيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْحُزْنِ, that Yaqub became blind, and I saw in front of me 18 of my family members. They were butchered and they were massacred, and you tell me that I should not cry. Ajrukum Allah. May Allah give you no grief, no sorrow except the sorrow of Ahlul Bayt. Come the year 95 after Hijrah, 25th of Muharram al-Haram, Imam ﷺ was poisoned by Walid ibn Abdul Malik and his brother Hisham ibn Abdul Malik. Imam was given the poison, and poison was slowly and gradually killing Imam. And on the 25th day of Muharram, Imam leaves this world. But as I mentioned before, Imam's janazah was taken out in a fashion where the Medina had never seen such a janaza, and he was buried next to his uncle. He was buried next to Imam Hassan and Mushtaba alayhi salatu wasalam. I would say, Mawla, you would provide it for janaza. Your tadkeen was taken place. Although Ali Saud destroyed your grave, but at the time of your death, at least your son was able to perform the last rituals. Oh Mawla, remember the time in Karbala when your father Hussein came to the ground. You were present in the tent, yet you could not help. ألا لعنة الله القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا. ماتم Hussein. Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein.
تیرے سجاد نے بابا قضا کئی بار ویکھیے، 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 تو زینب باردا ویکھی، تو زینب باردا ویکھی، میں وچ بازار ویکھیے، تیرے سجاد نے بابا قضا کئی بار ویکھیے، تیرے سجاد کھلے سنوال پھپیاں دے کیویں منہ تک کے گل کردا، کیویں منہ تک کے گل کردا، میں پورا سال زندہ دی، میں پورا سال زندہ دی، فقط دیوار ویکھیے، تیرے سجاد نے بابا کئی بار ویکھیے، تیرے سجاد نے بابا قضا کئی سکینہ آن کے پوچھیا کہ اینو بھیڑ کہندے نے، کہ اینو بھیڑ کہندے نے، میں کیویں آکھدا میں بھی، میں کیویں آکھدا میں بھی، اے پہلی وار ویکھیے، تیرے سجاد نے بابا کئی بار ویکھیے، سجاد کئی بار جتھے زینب کھلے سرسی، اودھی تبلیغ زندہ سی، اودھی تبلیغ زندہ سی، میں شیریں ایسے مجمع وچ، میں شیریں ایسے مجمع وچ، ہائے پردہ دار ویکھیے، تیرے سجاد نے بابا قضا کئی بار ویکھیے، جیویں پتھراں دے وچ لوکاں تیری میت دفن کیتی، تیری میت دفن کیتی، میں ہر ایک موڑ تے انج دی، میں ہر ایک موڑ تے انج دی، قبر تیار ویکھیے، تیرے سجاد نے بابا قضا کئی بار ویکھیے، کیا سکلین عابد نے، او جوندا مار گئی مینو، او جوندا مار گئی مینو، میں حالت جیڑی پھپیاں دی، میں حالت جیڑی پھپیاں دی، سرے دربار ویکھیے، تیرے سجاد نے بابا قضا کئی بار ویکھیے، تیرے سجاد نے بابا
اللہ آج میری غریبی تے کیسا وقت ہے آیا اللہ آج میری غریبی تے کیسا وقت ہے آیا اللہ آج میری غریبی تے کیسا وقت ہے آیا اللہ آج میری غریبی تے یہ کیسا وقت ہے آیا اللہ آج میری غریبی اللہ آج میری غریبی دفنا کے بین نو وچ کرتے سجاد نے رو فرمایا اللہ آج میری یہ کیسا وقت ہے آیا اللہ آج میری غریبی یہ کیسا وقت ہے آیا اے کلی لاش سکینہ دی جنہ مار گئی ہے مینوں اے کلی لاش سکینہ دی جنہ مار گئی ہے مینوں کربل دی 72 لاشاں نے مینوں اتنا نہیں تڑ پایا اللہ آج میری غریبی تے کیسا وقت ہے آیا اللہ آج میری غریبی یہ کیسا وقت ہے آیا او صبر دی پہلی منظر سی اے صبر دی آخری منزل او صبر دی پہلی منظر سی اے صبر دی آخری منزل اتھے باب اصغر دفن کیتا ات بہن نو میں دفنایا اللہ آج میری غریبی تے کیسا وقت ہے آیا اللہ میری غریبی اس ویلے انج محسوس ہویا ہتھ نیلے ہو گئے میرے اس ویلے انج محسوس ہویا ہتھ نیلے ہو گئے میرے او دے زخمی نیلے چہرے تے جس ویلے ہاتھ میں لایا اللہ آج میری غریبی تے کیسا وقت ہے آیا اللہ احساس ریا میری غربت دا زندان چ سو گئی اجڑی احساس ریا میری غربت دا زندان چ سو گئی اجڑی ہم شیر نے نال جنازے دے نہیں ویر بیمار ٹرایا اللہ میری غریب ایک ایسا اللہ کچھ کچھ خود ہوندا دفن ریا کم سی قبران دے اندر کچھ کچھ خود ہوندا دفن ریا کم سی قبران دے اندر اکبر سجاد مدینے تے کدو جوندا واپس آیا اللہ آج میری غریبی تے یہ کیسا وقت ہے آیا اللہ میری غریبی تے یہ دفنا کے بین نو وچ کرتے سجاد نے رو فرمایا اللہ آج میری
اے میرا بیمار امام ہے میرا بیمار امام ہے میرا ہائے میرا بیمار امام ہائے میرا بیمار امام ہائے میرا بعد قتل شاہ انام ہائے غربت کی وہ شام بعد قتل شاہ انام غش میں پڑا ہے تشنا کام ہو جائے غم سے نہ تمام اے میرا بیمار امام بیمار امام اے میرا زخم لہو برساتا ہے زخم لہو دل ہے کہ چلکاتا ہے زخم لہو آتا ہے دل کھاتا جاتا ہے لمحہ لمحہ گام بگام ہے میرا بیمار امام
ہے میرا بیمار امام
ماں و بہنوں کے چہرے
ماں و بہنوں کے چہرے
بالوں کے پیچھے ہے چھپے ماں و بہنوں کے چہرے
بالوں کے پیچھے ہیں چھپے
ہاتھ بندھے ہیں سر ہے کھلے سامنے ہے ایک مجمع عام آئے میرا بیمار امام
ہائے میرا بیمار امام
مجمع سارا ہنستا ہے
مجمع سارا ہنستا ہے
دل کا زہر اگلتا ہے مجمع سارا
ہنستا ہے دل کا زہر اگلتا ہے
خون کے آنسو روتا ہے سر کو جھکائے تشنا کام ہے میرا بیمار امام
ہائے
تیر سا دل پر لگتا ہے،
تیر سا دل پر لگتا ہے،
ایک رسن میں بستا ہے،
تیر سا دل پر لگتا ہے، ایک رسن میں بستا ہے،
شمر ستم گر ہنستا ہے، لے لے کر ایک ایک کا نام ہے میرا
بیمار امام، ہائے میرا بیمار امام،
میرا باب یہ لیلا ہے،
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 یہ کلثوم یہ کبرا ہے، میرا باب
لیلا ہے، یہ کلثوم یہ کبرا ہے،
یہ معصوم سکینہ ہے، اور ہے زینب اس کا نام ہے میرا
بیمار امام، ہائے میرا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد، اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد، اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته، السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء، السلام عليك يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء، السلام عليك يا شمس الشموس، السلام عليك أنيس النفوس، أيها المدفون بأرض توز روحي وجسمي لك الفداء، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته، السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان، الأمان الأمان الأمان، السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك إمام هذا، عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل مخرجك وظهورك وجعلنا من أنصارك وأعوانك، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.